Hey guys, welcome back to Real Love Scenario.
Real love scenario.
That's pretty good.
That was extra as hell.
Weather report is still hot,
Yes, it is.
but I'm inside, so I have on a hoodie.
Yes, it feels perfect in the stew.
Yeah,
Feels very, very good in here.
In the
Very
stew.
comfortable.
in the stew.
We in the stew. We in the stew. You know, we love coming in the stew because we can talk to you, so we can kick it with you, so we can break down these
funny.
scenarios. We in the stew.
It's making me think of because Bree was talking about one of her friends. She was like, this one girl that she hangs out with. She was like, she talks like really like a white girl, like preppy white girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard her over the house one time and I was like, yeah. But it always reminds me of that because they abbreviate words
So
that
much.
don't need to be.
Totes.
Yeah, totes.
Totes. They totes abbreviate everything. Totes.
It's like abbreviate words that have no
That
reason.
just don't need to be abbreviated. We're in the stew. We're about to run down to the stew, grab a bite. Yeah. Totes. Totes. Yes.
So that's what that reminded me of.
Yes, for sure. I love a good abbreviation.
Yeah.
As a non-preppy, non-white girl, in case y'all didn't notice, I like abbreviations. I do. Man, this one is interesting today.
Okay.
It is. It's I want you, soon as I finish reading it, to hit us with these questions.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is going to be a little heavy. Just a little bit.
You know, is everybody watching this and listening to it when you read, here's the music that goes behind it when you're reading it. But in my head, like here, because we don't have the music, I'm like,
play the music in your
I'm
mind.
like, dum, dum,
We're so like, we have to envision everything. Like, we really have to do that. That's our thing. All right, let's get into it. This week we have a scenario from Shy. Hey, Rhonda and Dre, I'm a huge fan of your podcast and I love your wisdom.
Thank you, Shy.
Thank you, Shy. So with that being said, I'm hoping you can help me out with my scenario. I'm 21 and I have a 1-year-old daughter. I've been damaged so badly as far as romantic relationships. I've dealt with a narcissist and liars and cheaters. The list goes on. I've been working on and building myself up after being torn down for years. It's definitely a process, but I feel like I'm ready to date again. Now I'm interested in this guy and I don't want my bad past to ruin my great future. So how can I open up and be loving without feeling like he's going to hurt and use me? How do I come to terms with my past and move on in a positive direction? And how can I let my walls down and let people in without worry or doubt?
She has lived a very
Yes, at
long
21.
but short life. It's a lot to go through at such a young age.
For sure. Like at 21, I don't think had I dated a narcissist yet? Yeah, I did. I ain't gonna lie.
I don't think you were cognizant of.
Yeah, I didn't know
what
that's what it was
narcissism
called.
was.
You know, he was obsessed with himself and manipulative and
Yeah.
you know, but I didn't know that that's what it was called. But yeah, 21? Oh, you poor teen. Let's get into this.
All right, first question.
How can we help Shy?
How should you move into a relationship when you have past trauma?
I mean, I think the very first thing is that you have to have done some work on yourself to know that you have trauma. Like some people won't even accept that. They're in denial that anything that happened to them
That's the first step.
even happened to them. So yes, first step is just like accepting that you have been through trauma. And then the next step is figuring out how to manage the triggers around your trauma. You can't undo the trauma. It is what it
Very
is.
true.
But you have to figure out what things trigger it so that you know how to manage your reaction to when you're triggered by the traumas. So yeah, you got to just be in touch with yourself to know like that you got this going on so that when you do go into situations with people, you're not projecting. You're not making them the bad guy. You're not making them the liar and cheater, even though they're not the liar and cheater. They're being honest, but they did a little bit of something that sort of kind of reminds you of the narcissist. And now you're like, oh, no. Like, that's it. I'm writing him off. That's you speaking from your trauma. That's you projecting. So you have to be cognizant of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think you can't, if you've lived in this world and you've experienced trauma, you can't I mean, you don't have to carry it around like a heavy bag, but it is a part of you.
For sure.
It's a part of you. So you can't go into a relationship without it. You just can go into it more aware of it. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Got you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you feel like you struggle with that at all when you entered into any of your relationships? Like any traumas that you had before that?
I didn't have a lot of like traumas that necessarily were like red flag traumas or anything. We all have traumas. We all have things that no matter how you were raised, who you were raised around, what you were raised around, we all have things that we were taught that we tend to have to unlearn, you know? So for me, it wasn't necessarily that much of an issue.
Okay.
I had things that I had to figure out and deal with and understand why I did that thing or how I did that thing, or why I think a certain way, but necessarily nothing like toxic. No toxic trait, really.
Did it have to be brought to your attention? Like, or did you pay attention to why you were doing things a certain way? Like, or did someone have to say, do you notice that you always blah, 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 blah? And you like, I never noticed that. And then you started to look into it.
I think it had to be brought to my attention because there are some things, and I talked about this, I think either last episode or 2 episodes ago, that there are certain things that are general red flags that just in general, no matter what relationship you're in, no matter who you're talking to, that if you see this, stay away. But then there are also things that are particular to the person that you're with.
Yeah.
And if you have been with somebody who didn't see the thing that you struggle with as necessarily an issue, then you never really addressed it. But if you're with somebody then who sees something and they're like, well, I don't understand why you don't do this, or why this doesn't come natural to you, or why you think this way. And then if that's never something you ever been challenged on before, then you start to think like, why do I think this? I never thought about it. Like, this is just how I acted or how I felt about it or how I think about it. And I've never thought that it was even an issue until I got into this relationship. And the thing is that when you're in a relationship with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that what you're talking about or the issue that you're going through is an issue just in general. But if it's an issue for your person, then you need to address it and kind of figure that thing out. And
because it could be their trauma.
It could be their trauma.
It's their trauma. It's not yours. It's just something that you have to work through together because you guys are together. That was actually going to be my next question to you is like, are you pretty observant when you like, obviously, you know, you're married, but like even with Bree or any woman you dated before her, are you like kind of observant when you feel like this is something else? This is deeper than what's actually coming out of her mouth. Because I think that's kind of how traumas look. Like you're saying one thing, but I'm looking and noticing like that's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I've gotten better at identifying it, especially with my wife. And I talked about this with what effective communication is, and it's learning your person's language and understanding that what they're saying out of their mouth not necessarily be what they're truly feeling, or the root of the frustration didn't come from this moment right here. It came from something that might have happened a little bit earlier. Yeah. So I've learned over time to look and pay attention to the deeper thing, because right now you may be yelling at me or frustrated at me, but the thing you truly frustrated has nothing to do with me. Yeah. It's something else.
Absolutely. I've never had, from what I know, genuinely someone be able to tap into or like read when something I am saying is connected to a trauma. Like once I got on my journey of trying to figure that out for myself, I just was more conscious of it, but then I would also communicate that I have trauma. Like I have a thing that shows up. Like I've talked about in a previous episode that like trust and abandonment was the trauma that I dealt with, or the most prevalent trauma that I dealt with. And it showed up in different ways, but it all circles around trust and abandonment. So I know that sometimes when I enter into a situation, I'm less trusting than someone who probably hasn't experienced that. Yeah. But I've never dated a man who could reason that, who could be like, you doing it to me or you're saying it to me, but I know that it's really not about me and I want to help you get through this. I think it's very hard to like not take it personal when it's coming at you.
Now, what I explained is maturity over a certain amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. So even earlier today, I was pulling something in a bag out the closet and the thing dropped on my foot. Mm-hmm. And it was a thing that Bria put up. It wasn't stable. Fell on
Okay.
my foot.
Okay.
Hurt my foot.
Yeah.
She was saying like, oh, this is how things need to be. And she was showing the other shelves and how they were secure. And I was like, the shelves aren't on right. Like, I've done these things. They're not on right. And I was like frustrated. I was like, this is not. And she's like, I just did it. And I'm like, I've been doing these closets for this, blah, 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 arguing. And then as I was walking out, I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I was just mad because the thing hit my foot. Like,
Yep.
I mean, like, I don't care.
It
like,
had nothing
to do with you. Like, I was just
I'm
upset
just in pain.
and I was in pain.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, a small example of what a larger trauma could feel like is that you're just in pain a lot of times. So it's not necessarily anything you did. It's just that in this moment, this trigger happened, this thing that triggered me, and it put me in a mindset of when I was in a immense amount of pain or a lot of pain. And it just gets me to this place to where no matter who's talking to me or what's happening, I get in this mindset, in this mood. So that came with maturity for me. But I want to go to the question, the first question I asked, and it's saying, the question was, I think, how should you move forward in relationship?
Move into a relationship? Yeah, if you have trauma.
And I thought about that a lot because Bree had a lot of trauma, and a lot of things that she was working through, and I still accepted her and still worked with her, and still walked with her as she was battling through these things and trying to grow from it. And I
we
think,
love that. That's so loving.
Well, that's what love is, right?
That
real,
is it.
Real love is
unconditional love.
It's not loving you because of, it's loving you in spite of.
That's right.
Anybody can love you because of. I can love you because you're cute. I can love you because of your job. I can love you because you buy me nice things. But do you love me in spite of my weight? Do you love me in spite of my anger? Do you love? Because that's when love shows up.
That's it.
It's easy to show up when, oh, you gave me a gift. Oh, I gave you a gift.
Listen,
oh, vacation. That's easy.
Builds character.
It's easy.
That's
the real love shows up in spite of what's going on.
Yeah.
But what I learned with her is that, and my mindset to it now when it comes to moving into a relationship with trauma, is that you can't move into a relationship with an open wound, but you can move into a relationship with scars. And what scars mean is that there's still remnants of what have happened, but the healing has already started to begun.
Hey, come on, hit your organs.
Because if your wound is open, you can't. If you keep picking at it and things keep happening to keep hitting that wound, and it's never going to heal. But if you now have that scar, I still have a scar on my hand from high school. Like, it's a scar. It's there. The remnants of what have happened is still there. It's healed to a certain point, but there's still things that could remind me of this being here and what happened to make me get this, that I'll be like, I ain't doing that again. Like, so the scar is still there. And I think that you can move forward if you have scars, because there's still things that you're going to be cognizant of, and still things you're going to pay attention to, but the healing has already begun.
I 100% agree. But again, that goes to you having to know that it exists, so that you know that you have to do the work.
Treat it.
People think that the best way to get over something
is to get into something new.
And
that is the worst thing. Because let me tell you what happens in that situation. When you have a hole, right? Let's say you're riding in a boat. Riding in a boat.
We in the boat.
And the person brings their equipment to fill that hole for you. What happens when that person leaves?
They got to leave their equipment.
No, if that person leaves,
they taking their equipment.
They taking their equipment. So the holes are back. And what you do is you end up sticking with that person because they are the person that filled your hole. So in order for you to keep swimming and keep doing what you're doing, you are now relying on somebody else to fill your holes versus you doing the work of yourself to fill the holes yourself. If you come into a relationship and you're not healed, what you're doing is you're allowing or you're setting yourself up to be dependent on somebody else.
Codependency and trauma bonding. That's why they're really things, because you're like, I'm latching onto this and I'm latching onto you because I have trauma and you can fix it. Even if it's just for a moment. It's different where you talked about when you and Bree got together and she came into the relationship working through her traumas. The person has to be actively on the journey, or they're healed, but they just still have the scars. You can't avoid that. I'm going to always have trust and abandonment trauma because of my relationship with my father, because of men cheating on me when I was in relationships,
the scars
because
are gonna be there.
men
it's
who
hard.
were supposed to protect me. They
scars.
didn't do that. The scars are there, but I don't think that everyone is my father. So that's the difference. Like, I know that was my dad. That is not this man. And I have to give him an opportunity to show me that he is not, one, he's not my father, period. He could have traits similar to my dad. He could have characteristics similar to my father, but I have to allow him time to show that and or not show that. That's when you're getting into that space of like projecting, where you're just like, this looks like this, so it must be this. No, sometimes it doesn't look like that. That's your mind warping it to look like that. And other times it could look like that, but it doesn't mean that it is that. You know what I mean? So that's it. That trauma bonding is something, and I've been there where I was like, I just gotta get to somebody that can almost like save me, because I don't know how to save myself. I'm thankful that I got to a place where I realized that the only person that could save me was God, myself, and any other resource that I put in place to help myself, genuinely help myself. Reading, therapy, those things, talking through and trying to understand my mind and why does the brain work this way. Like, it cannot be other people or even things. Like, people will become dependent on drugs, alcohol, anything to soothe it, just to fill the hole for a moment. It's all just like a little Band-Aid to hold you over.
Nah, I completely agree. And that's the thing that I've learned with my relationship with Bree, is that number one, Bree, I always say this, is that Bree came to the job interview kind of unqualified.
Okay.
In a sense.
Oh my goodness.
Not trying to sound mean. But for the terms of this example, she wasn't the best lady
for the job at the time. Okay.
But she came and said like, "Hey, these things, these are the things I'm really good at. Kind of. Yeah. These are the things that I'm working on. I know I'm not good at it, and I want to get better at it. Like, but I'm letting you know these are the things, right? And that's what you said, is first acknowledging it, right? Yeah. And then I think a part of so I think people.
I have a question. I'm going to remember. Go.
Okay. I think people, when you come first, you have to determine, because people always say like, I have questions about relationships and if they should commit to somebody. And the easy thing is always like, oh, just leave if something doesn't seem right. But, and I'm pretty sure if I told people about my situation, I remember I used to call you about stuff. It's like in certain situations, people would just be like, why are you like, leave? Right. But you make a decision sometimes to commit to somebody. And that means that you are there kind of through the ups and the downs and, you know, really committing to wanting to help this person work through whatever they're trying to work through. Yeah. And I feel like I did that, but through the whole process of our relationship, I feel like Bree was always honest with me, you know, and everything that she was doing. Vulnerable. She was vulnerable. Yeah. She was vulnerable, and she made it, you know, apparent through everything that like, hey, I'm struggling through this. I need you to be patient with me. I know I ain't going to be right. But also through this process, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, is that people have to understand how long these things take. Like, it's not an overnight process. Yeah. It's not something that somebody, as soon as they acknowledge, hey, this is an issue for me, and you tell them like, oh, these are the things I think you should do, that overnight is just going to change. It's like, it's not. It's going to take a while. They're going to fail sometimes. They're going to fall back into it sometimes. Yeah. Like, there's going to be times where you ignore it, but then there's going to be times where you get frustrated by it. Like, it's just part of the process, and understanding the process of somebody growing through something and trying to get rid of a habit or trying to do something that was how they operated their whole lives.
You're trying to undo conditioning.
Exactly. That takes a long time. Yes. So it's like, you have to, if you're truly committed to somebody, you have to be patient and understand to wait it out. And the biggest thing, and I said this in the thing with Bree and I, is that you have to celebrate the wins. Like, you have to, because it's so easy to look at something that you feel like somebody should naturally do and see it as, if they do it, that's what you should have been doing. and you don't celebrate it because you don't see it as a big of a deal.
Yeah.
If somebody, you clean up after yourself all the time, if somebody puts it in the dishwasher, rinses it off, and they haven't been doing that because they're not accustomed to doing that, and they do that now because you've been stressing it to them.
Oh, thanks, babe.
Yes, don't ignore it as if like, or if they say like, hey babe, hey babe, you see me put it in, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's not impressive. And it's like, well,
what would it have killed you just to acknowledge that as a win? Yeah.
Right. So I think that that's a struggle that people have when they're dating somebody who's dealing with trauma, is that you understand it takes time for that person to get through it and to unlearn the conditioning.
Yeah, for sure. I had a question when you said, Bree was really vulnerable and was like, sharing with you, these are the things that I'm not really great at today, but I want to be really great at them today. Did you have that experience as well, where you were like, these are the things that I'm not really great at, here's where I need your support along this process? And in really any facet, because I think everybody comes into the relationship with strengths and weaknesses. We all do. Or did you, Dre, just think like, I'm good, I got this, I'm very qualified for the job?
To a certain extent, I feel like I was good because I was more advanced than her in a lot of different spaces.
Okay.
When it came to, like, let's say managing money, I was way more advanced. When it came to your emotional intelligence and stuff like that, I was way more advanced. Understanding how to communicate in a relationship, I was way more advanced. So a lot of things I was way more advanced. Not saying I was the best at it, but when you're better than the other person, then it doesn't seem as bad. But I think that even if I would have communicated it to her, because she was in such a position of where she feel like she had so much to work on, she wouldn't have been able to receive it. She used to always say like, Dre's perfect and I just have so many issues. And I just be like, I'm not perfect. Like, I'm not perfect.
Yeah, that's what made me ask that, because I'm like, I would feel like if I'm bearing myself to you and being vulnerable that I have flaws, yes, I may have like 90, but you might have like 2. And I want to feel naked with you. I want you to feel naked with me. I want to see your flaws. I really like, if we're talking about it, if we're figuring out like what we need to do to make this cohesive and break through whatever we have going on, I want to feel like you're vulnerable too.
But it's hard to accept somebody's vulnerability if you feel like it's kind of almost like first world problems. It's like, you want me to feel bad for you because you have to pay taxes on your boat. I don't feel bad for you. It's a problem. I get it. It's something but I have my problems exceed way more than what yours are. So even if it's the 90%, if I'm telling you like, hey, I struggle with this, you can't even see that sometimes because it's like, you dealing with like, that ain't nothing.
It's like, I get what you're saying. You're saying like, don't try to, like, don't one up it.
It's kind of like you are like mocking me in a sense that my problems are really like heavy trauma, like problems. And you're trying to be vulnerable by telling me that, I don't know, your mom wasn't nice to you or something like that sometimes when she was, or like, stuff that's like it doesn't seem as like, but
that's also relative, right?
Yeah. But like, say for instance, Bree, using my wife as an example, and she's talked about this before, so I could say it, it's like, all right, her dad left her, right? Her dad was supposed to pick her up from something. She said she didn't want to go with him because she didn't really know him at the time, and he blamed her for that, and that's the reason that he didn't continue a relationship with her. When her first boyfriend got murdered in a barbershop or something like that, she had to identify the body and all this stuff. She's had so many crazy experiences. So for me, who like grew up, mom and dad were great, private school, kindergarten, 5th grade, and high school, full scholarship to college, and like my life seems to be like so peachy cream. Both of my parents are great and ministers, and like I have such a supportive family. And for me to even mention like a problem that I'm having is like, is that really a problem? No. Or like, I wish that was the problem I was going. So it's kind of hard to communicate your issue with somebody who's really going through something heavy.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that one-upping spirit is, it's like nasty. It's like, while I'm sharing and bearing my soul, I don't want to feel like you're doing it to compete with me, but I want to feel like you're doing it to relate to me. Like it's hard for me to connect to you if I don't feel relation to you. If it's like you're perfect and I am exceptionally imperfect, I don't know that I would even feel comfortable coming to you with all that I have going on, because you not used to any type of flaw, because you're just so used to perfection, and not necessarily using you guys as, you know, but that like we find sometimes peace and sanctuary in relating, and like, yes, no, you know, if my parents both died when I was 5, you know, that's not what happened, but let's just say that. And you've had yours all of your life, but they were abusive. They were disrespectful. They were not there. They beat you. They beat each other. You still have parental trauma, just like I have parental trauma. Your parents, in fact, I would venture to say yours was probably worse. I get it that you, but again, that's why I say it's all relative, right? Because someone would say, I would rather have my parents even if they were toxic, where I'm like, I don't know about that. I might not, I would prefer to not have them if they're toxic.
So let me ask you this question. From my experience, a lot of people who go through traumatic things or have trauma or baggage, they don't necessarily know how to escape that, right? But
victims,
they think they do. So they'll suggest things or tell you things that they need from you that they think will get them out of that problem or give them what they need. But you kind of know that that's not going to do it. So do you think that you do those things that they ask of you? Or do you think that you are like, that's not going to work? Or you try to suggest other things or go about it a different way? Like, what do you think?
I think it's a balance. I think relationships in general are ebb and flow. They're give and take. And so I don't, you know this. I'm not a fan of doing things you don't want to do, regardless of what that is, for somebody, with somebody. Like if you really, really, really don't want to do it, maybe in the moment you have to do it. But in a relationship, I definitely feel like you shouldn't be doing anything just because I want that. I want your buy-in. I want you to, like, if my, let's just use hypothetical. My boyfriend's like, I dealt with whatever trauma and it's important to me. Oh, actually, you can use a real example. My ex, his daughter was raped in college. One of my ex's daughter was raped.
I think I remember this story.
Yeah. And he, like, she went to college away, like out of state. And he wanted them, you know, both his daughters to be like checking in with him sometimes when they would be doing things off campus, just so that he would know where they were. And she didn't do that. And she was raped. And so when we were together, he had this thing that he would always want me to let him know. Like if I was going out, he knew I was going out, but he wanted me to let him know when I got to my destination and that I was safe and I was okay. And I had never done that before. I had never checked in, like just to make you feel comfortable. And for me, it felt like you like, you don't trust me. Like you trying to check up on me, when really that was something that came out of a trauma that he experienced, that he wanted his kids to do to begin with, and they didn't. And so he feels like, I could have done something. I could have saved her. I could have stopped that from happening, when the reality is you probably could not have. And so in that case, as much as I didn't want to do it, initially I did it, but then I was like, yo, this feels weird, because if I forget, because I got there and I saw my friends, and now I'm just like,
is it gonna pop up? Is it gonna like,
and sometimes he would message me like, I mean, hello, are you good? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm fine, but it would create tension. So we had to have a conversation about that like, listen, I want to support this for you, but I want to figure out if there is a better way to manage your feelings around this, because yes, I can keep doing this, but it's not natural to me. So I'm going to constantly forget, and then we're going to argue, and we're just going to stay in this cycle.
I think that's the biggest thing that you have to confront with this, or one of the largest things you have to confront with this, and the line that's kind of blurry, is that actions that you can take to help somebody get past and through their trauma versus actions that you're taking that like continue to enable it.
Yes.
That's like the tricky thing.
It's such a balancing act.
It's such a balancing. Yeah, it's a balancing
act. It's like a person
action.
who doesn't trust you. They might say, I need to be able to like have access to your phone.
Yeah.
Is that trusting me though?
Right.
That's not really trusting me. That's making sure that there's nothing in my phone. That's checking. Trusting me is being able to say I don't need to do that
exactly.
because I actually trust you. So it's like I didn't need to text you when I got to my destination every single time because you should trust that I'm okay, right? And even if, let's just say I did message you and I say, hey, I'm here, I'm good. 10 minutes later, I could not be good.
That's very true.
What could you know what I mean? Like if you're not with me, you have to trust that I will be okay. And that even if I'm not, you didn't do anything to cause that. You didn't do me not telling you didn't make it happen or not, not make it happen. So it is a very, very fine balancing act. So I say, to answer your question, you have to figure that out. I think there are things that you can do to make someone feel comfortable if it's natural to you. And then there's things where it's like, babe, we got to figure out a different way. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk through it. Let's fully process that. And that's why for me, dating someone working on themselves in an emotional way is like a deal breaker. If that's not something that you do, I can't date you, because now that I've started to do that, I've been doing it for years now. I can just feel it when you're not that way, when you're not emotionally intelligent. When we're talking, I can feel that. And it's a turnoff. Like I can't stand it when you don't think about how your behaviors impact other people. You speak in a very callous or cold way. You think things that are just like absolutely ridiculously bad or like funny, like you're immature. I can't handle it. It's an absolute no for me. Even if I really like a lot of the other things about you, it's out. You're out.
Yeah, I think when you've dealt with, and I'll ask this question, we'll go to the next one. When you've dealt with people or even dealt with your own traumas, what do you think was like really the turning point in that? Because I feel like Bree had things that she had traumatic experience, but it took like a point to where it kind of went too far for her to really wake up to like, oh, I really need to put in action that like I need to be better about this. Not saying that she wasn't trying before, but I think a lot of times what we do is that we had talked about this on a different episode, is that when you do things, let me put it like this. When you go through therapy and people teach you like skills and techniques and things like that, that's all cool until like the situation actually happens and emotions are flying. And then all those techniques, all those let's breathe, 3 breaths, like all that goes out the window because you upset and you angry and you going through stuff. So I felt like with my relationship with Bree that we would go through certain things to where I would try to communicate to her like, all right, this is how we need to go about things, like, but it took her actually having a traumatic thing happen to where it was like
you can actually put it into
practice, like to where, or like it took, like say she had an alcohol problem where she used to drink a lot. It took her being drunk in a hotel bathroom, pants down, like me taking pictures of it to show you like, yo, like
this is a problem.
This is really what the work you've been doing. I appreciate it, but it's not good enough right now. Like you need to put in an extra like level of effort. Or like in those moments to where you address people, they become very defensive. Like they try to defend what they're talking about or defend what they do. So it's hard to really reach them because anytime you want to address it, they're like, well, you shouldn't be having your phone like that. You shouldn't have your phone face now. Like, who you texting then?
Right.
Like, it's like, then you become very defensive. So it could just be tough to like address.
It can be very, very tough to address it. For me, it was the turning point. It like happened. It was almost like it happened to me. It was very unassuming. I thought that I had made so much peace with, the fact that I had this fractured relationship with my father most of my life. Like I always say, I loved him. He was my friend. He was a part of my life, but he was not actively my dad. He just wasn't. He came around when he came around. When he didn't, it would be stretches of time where I wouldn't see or speak to him. I had thought that, when he passed away when I was 23, I thought that, I had processed it because I went through a very heavy processing of his death within itself. Even that was like it actually re-triggered the trauma that was existent from when I was a child, because then he was choosing to not be there, right? At least that was what my mind was telling me. Like, you know that you have a kid and you're choosing not to come around. And my father, and I have no shame, I've talked about it many times, my father was an addict.
Yeah.
So really, a lot of times he wasn't choosing. He had a disease and he wasn't properly treating the disease. So they were kind of, I mean, it had a hold on him.
Yeah.
So it was like, you abandoned me because you loved drugs or you loved women, the things that he was addicted to most. So when he passed away, it was literally as if I was a little girl and he had left me again. And this time, there's no recourse.
There's no
I can't
coming back.
actually like try to find you. I can't try to call you. I can't try to do it. So when he first passed, I had a whole process that lasted for months, right, of me trying to work through that. Then years later, I think I'm 38 now. I was probably 33 or so. I was at home taking a bath. I was watching something on TV, like, on my iPad or whatever. And something on there caused me to have a like visceral reaction. Like, I burst into tears, like uncontrollably crying. I'm at home with my partner at the time. He comes into the bathroom and he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm like losing my shit. Like, I'm having almost what felt like an anxiety attack. And I got out of the tub, he helped me get out of the tub, and he's like, what's going on? I couldn't talk. Like, I couldn't really make it make sense for a very long time. And then at the end, I was just like, I miss my father, right? And it took over me. And it had probably been, that probably was 12 years after he passed. But something about that show triggered me, and I realized I didn't have the tools, or the tools, I hadn't used them in so long, so I lost them, right? I had them when I was 23. It's 12 years later. That thrust me into therapy. Like, literally, I found a therapist the next week and got like right on it, because I was in what felt like a very normal, relaxing environment. Like, in my tub, like luxuriating. And the next thing you know, I'm like, it came up on me. So I needed to get them so that if that happened again, I could do it myself. Because what if my ex wasn't there? What if this relationship doesn't work out and I'm actually alone and I don't know what to do in this moment? You don't want
to put that on your partner anyways.
No, like, I'm thankful that he was there, but he was so scared. He was so scared for me, because it was like, did something happen in the tub? Like, are you hurt? Like, and because I couldn't speak for so long, like, he's like, do you want me to call your mother? And I'm just like, no, I just want you to hug me. It was wild times. And I got emotional talking about it just now, because as good as I am with it now, because it's just much more of a tool that I use, it can easily come back up. Something can trigger that. And to your point, you could go and get the skills all you want, but you have to be so incredibly in tune with yourself to put those tools into place when you are triggered.
For sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
That was a good conversation on that. As far as for a new partner, like in this situation, if you have somebody new that you're interested in, how do you communicate those traumas to a new partner?
Well, I think that you're honest once you know that this is somebody that is going to be around. I do think that you should tell them, for that very example that I just gave you, that this is a thing for me, and I don't know what all the triggers are, but here are some of them, so that they know, so that they can participate in your process, so that they can not necessarily take things personal when you do or say something, or when you have a lapse in using your tools. I think you just express it. You have a serious conversation about, like, hey, I just want to talk to you about this. This is something that I'm working on, something that I've been working on, and the following things can be triggers for me. So I just wanted to make you aware. I want you to support my process, you know, and hold me accountable to my process. If I tell you that when I'm triggered, I have to take a 10-minute walk, if you see me being triggered, or you might be like, you want to take a 10-minute walk? You want me to walk with you? Do you want to walk by yourself? Like, help me go to my toolbox, because like you said, sometimes your emotions get so out of whack. You need someone to be like, it's okay. Let's just take a moment, and not make it about themselves. Like, you don't need no 10-minute walk. We need to talk about this right now. When I told you 6 months ago that is something that helps me process. So give me space to process it. So you got to arm them with information so they can help you.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that if you're going into a new situation and you need to communicate your traumas with that person, the number one, I think that you should wait to reveal it because you don't want to be defined by those things initially. So I'm not saying like, oh, wait 6-7 months or whatever. But in the initial time of dating, I think you should take your time revealing what those things are.
Yeah.
Especially like I always get, I don't like ex talk in relationships because it's almost like comparing situations, or the person begins to maybe not act how they would normally act because you're telling them, oh, my ex did this and this made me whatever. So I would say number one is just waiting to reveal that until like you actually are sure that this is somebody you trust them with this information and stuff like that. But I think to what you said, it's saying what it is, right? But also how you're working to be better at this or overcome it, I think is a big thing too. And another thing that I think really helped me, and I think what helps a lot of people, is that when you're explaining it, I think it's important when you get upset or frustrated to tell the person that you're with it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like you said, this is a trigger that I have. Or maybe even when you start the conversation, you can explain the experience that got you to this point.
Yes.
Hey, I'm very aware of it. These are certain triggers. I want to let you know that if I do get upset or if I am asking you like, hey, can you put your phone away while we're at dinner? It's not necessarily you, or I don't want you to take it in a way that I don't trust you or I don't think like, it's just, I have some things I'm dealing with, have some things I'm working on, but that will help me in my process of like trying to be better at it if you do that.
You cannot support anyone if you don't know how to support them. I mean, you can have a general sense of that, but assuming is just not a good idea.
No.
You can't assume that the best way to support this person is by doing this. You need to know that from them. So if you're on the opposite side of it, like you were trying to support someone who has significant traumas, you know, when y'all have the conversation, you should be asking questions like, okay, well, what happens if this happens? Or, okay, you told me about those triggers and you realize I probably do 2 of those things. Can I actually not do them so that I don't trigger your trauma? Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, is because we were talking about this when Bree was talking about her red flags and how people were receiving that at one point. It's like, there's nothing wrong with having triggers from your trauma or red flags or anything. The thing that's more important is how you respond to those triggers.
That's it.
It's like a trigger for you could be that somebody flips their phone upside down because exes that you had that cheated on you before, they all did that. But it's one way to say like, hey, or like get buck and be like, who you texting? Like, why you putting your phone down? Like, that's one way to respond to the trigger.
Give me your phone.
It's like, that's one way to respond. Or you could say like, hey, I'm enjoying the time we're having at dinner. I was just wondering if you mind putting your phone up so we could just focus on us. You're not talking about cheating. You're not implying that he's cheating. You're just saying that, hey,
this behavior I'm not okay with this behavior. And I would rather you do something else.
So I want to connect with you. I want to enjoy this time with you. Do you mind just putting it up? Because it seems like it's distracting you a little bit. Like, it's not necessarily the issue of having the trigger or having the red flags or having the baggage. Just how you respond to the triggers that happen.
That's it. That's all that they are. They are red flags, are warning signs to you. It could very well be nothing. That flag could have been there by mistake, or this person is like, oh, I always do that. Like that. Me and my girlfriend wound up having a conversation about Bree saying that, because for me, it's not so much putting the phone face down. It's the behaviors around your phone usage.
Yeah.
Now, that could be a part of it, but it's more so when your body language when you're in your phone. Like, do you always take your phone with you when you leave the room? You know, your phone can be 1000% face up. You could be getting text messages, all types of things, and your phone doesn't go off. That could mean that you are messing around or cheating on me. So it's not just the phone up, phone down. It's other behaviors that are around that would make me be like, huh, you see, but I'm also gonna watch and observe.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just jump to the
as soon as you
conclusion
see
that
something, it's just boom.
boom, that's that. It's like, no, it has to be other things that for me, again, that's my flag. But if that's Bree's flag, that was her flag. You can't tell somebody what their red flags should or should not be because it's rooted in things that they've experienced.
And I think that when you have people who have traumatic things and toxic traits and things like that, it's more in the reaction to the triggers than it is the actual triggers themselves.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like, I think there are a lot of things, whether fully healed or not, that will cause anybody, it would be a thing of concern. Like they would see something and be like,
that's interesting.
well, interesting.
Yeah, it's a little interesting.
A little different.
Yeah.
Like no matter where you are in your journey but how healed you are is depending on how you react to it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like your maturity around it, how you address it. That's the maturity.
That's what you're looking for when you're healing, is how to react, because you will never be able to not get triggered.
Me and Rhonda have worked in property management.
Rhonda still does.
Yes.
Save me, Jesus. Please save me.
So a lot of the same issues occur, right, in property management, even though every day is different. But the reactions,
man,
that different people give are completely different. Same action that happened, but the reactions,
that's where it is.
That's what got Rhonda saying, save me, Jesus. It's these people's reactions.
So friggin' true.
This is going off. Everybody who worked in property management has residents that they just remember.
Trauma. Because they caused a traumatic experience in your life.
It's because they just won't stop. Like,
yeah, that's it.
They just, it's like, this happened to five other apartments got flooded. We doing the same exact thing for everybody, but
why are you're on the roof? Why you are on the ceiling every single time I see you? Like, Jesus Christ, like, help me help you.
And you think this makes me want to help you more?
Doesn't. In fact, I just want you to go. You want to give your notice to vacate. Why you bring up property management? Now, why would you do that? Because you know damn well I could do a whole episode.
Yes. This is a trigger. As you see,
I've been triggered. Don't trigger me with property management, please. Anywho, back to Shy, because now we have to give Shy advice on
the situation,
really what she should do, because she asks very, very specific questions.
Okay.
She wants to know how she comes to terms with her past and moves on in a positive direction. I feel like we've, addressed that. But she also wants to know, how can she let her walls down and let people in without worry or doubt?
I think it takes time. Like, you need to be patient. Because people reveal to you who they really are over time, and letting your walls down, those are trust walls. So the only way you let your walls down, somebody has to pass that next level of trust with you. And it's easier. You'll better understand or know who somebody is, how consistent they are, if just over time, because even people are faking, they can't keep up an act but for so long. So I think it's that number one is being patient with the person that you're dealing with. And then you can slightly start to reveal things. It's kind of like we said before, it's like trust is, people always say, oh, I don't give trust, you got to earn it. It's like, no, we all give trust initially, but it's just little pockets of things that you can trust. So it's like, I'm giving you this, I'm gonna see how you handle that. Then if you handle that well, then I'll give you another thing and see how you handle that, and give you another thing to see how you handle that. So I think that's the approach. It's a trust approach, which comes with a lot of patience and understanding, like, all right, this is going to take time for me to feel vulnerable enough to share all these things with you. But you have to show me that you're ready to handle this, and that you're somebody that's worth trusting this information to.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say my advice to Shy on how to approach dating again without worry or doubt is, you really have to release this idea that there are guarantees in it. And because there aren't any. you have to work through your stuff and continue to work through your stuff and make sure that you're healed, even if you have scars. But there are no promises. There are none. There's nothing that says, this next person will not hurt me. They could. And you have to understand that. You have to prepare yourself for what that looks like, where you can bounce back from that. Not saying it won't be a process, but that it's not as much of a process. It doesn't send you in a tailspin. You have to go into every situation giving it trust, giving it grace, and not projecting. But you don't control the outcomes.
Yeah.
You contribute to the outcomes, but you don't control the outcomes because you can only control you. You can't control this person. There are people who meet people, marry them, make lives with them, and they change 20 years later.
Very true.
You could not have made them believe that would happen 20 years ago, but it did. So there's no guarantees in getting back out here. So having doubt or worry, to me, it's just something you need to release. You need to surrender to the notion that it just really may not work out, but I am going to be okay. I will be fine regardless. My worth, my joy, my happiness doesn't hinge itself upon my next situation working out. It hinges itself upon me feeling happy, whole, and healed by myself. And anybody that gets to share a life with me will be thankful that they have a happy, whole, and healed person that can support their life, and subsequently they can support mine. So it's just no guarantees, babe. There's no way to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen to you. You just need to develop the skills so that you know how to manage it should something else happen to you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like you need to shift your mindset a little bit. Although there may be things that you were damaged from or you have traumas, I feel like you're looking at it kind of in a negative lens, in a sense that we all have traumas, we all have issues, we all have things that we're trying to work out and work through. But I want to let you know you're not
damaged goods.
Yeah, or you're not like different. There's nothing like, it's not like everybody else is good and you are in the category to where you have issues. No, we all have issues.
We all have them.
So stop looking at it like there's something that's specifically wrong with you. The person that you're going to be with, whoever that is, they're going to have their own issues too. Like they're going to have their own traumas. They're going to have their own things. So it's not necessarily about you not having any or trying to go into a relationship perfect. Is understanding that these things exist, managing them, communicating them, and then also if you're with somebody, supporting them through the things that they're also trying to work through, which they will have their own trauma. So
I think she's well on her way. I mean, writing into us, even recognizing that you have trauma.
Yeah, at the age of 21.
Yes, that is impressive. That
sure.
is very impressive. So I think you are well on your way. Don't worry, you'll be fine. And listen, there's somebody that is out there that will love you in spite of.
This was a serious one.
This was a serious one. Yes.
Do you have bad advice for this person that works?
I mean, I do. I love this segment so much, but I just get, really nervous about giving out
bad advice
sometimes. But I'm gonna go ahead and let it rip.
Okay.
Like most people who are toxic,
yes,
they tend to have traumas that they haven't processed, that they haven't healed through, and they go about doing things that are very toxic to maybe others, but very gratifying to themselves.
Yes.
So maybe you just need to take a few spins on the block in a very casual, you don't give a damn about nobody else's feelings because, well, nobody gave a damn about yours, which is how you got into this situation where you had to deal with narcissists, liars, and cheaters. So maybe you should just be toxic, get that out your system, be like, I had to do that to you because of him. And just, maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll make you feel better, like you got it out, like almost like you got a little revenge. I don't think you should do this. I really seriously don't think that you should do this. But being toxic sometimes is fun. Being toxic sometimes is entertaining. And more than anything, toxic people, they don't finish last. They really usually don't. They usually get exactly what they want when they want. They get to do things on their own terms.
Because they play by a different set of rules.
Correct. And they leave horrifying people, like they leave just a trail of mess. So, I don't think you should do it, but it seems to work for the toxic folks.
Rhonda's right about those people.
It's true.
Sometimes they just leave a trail of mess.
And don't care.
Go down to Florida, live in Mar-a-Lago, just live the rest of their life.
It's getting personal, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you want to share?
Yeah, he was the president.
Oh. You're talking about Donald Trump. Facts. Listen, I ain't getting on the political thing because it'd be a lot of mess happening in that house. In that house, in all them houses up there.
So my bad advice.
Oh boy. I didn't think you were gonna have some. Go.
I have 2 things for you.
Okay. 2
of advice that you should not take.
Yes, don't take this.
Don't take it. Number 1, play the victim in your relationship. It's not them. It's not you. It's them.
Why are you doing this to me?
Why?
Don't you know? Why would you do this to me? Yeah.
Play the victim.
Wow.
I mean,
I told you this happened to me when I had my child, and you just keep on. That's
make
crazy.
it seem like it's their fault.
Let me stop participating in this because I don't want people thinking that I would do this. I would not do this.
You've done it though.
No, I haven't.
You never played the victim? Not once.
Okay. Yeah, I did. Damn, I did. He deserved it. Fuck him.
To where you knew what you was doing too. You was.
Yeah. We both were doing it. I'm sorry, God.
Yeah, that's right. So play the victim, right? That's a way that, everything that happens is not you, it's him, right? And he should know better. He should understand how those actions, it's not your trauma. He has to change his behavior.
Yes.
Don't take that advice. Number 2.
He got a nerve to have 2 bad advice things. Go.
Number 2, you can get a man that really ain't ish, who is highly dependent on you. So no matter how you act, what are you gonna do?
Wow, don't take that advice.
Don't do it.
Definitely don't do that one. If you're gonna do any of the 3, leave that one behind. Don't do it, sis. I'm telling you right now. You 21. You just got your credit a couple years ago.
If you ain't ready to heal and you want to still remain toxic and kind of go in those ways, you need somebody who subscribes to that type of crazy.
Don't do it.
But you should not do that.
No, you should not do that.
No,
that's bad advice. That's not gonna work out for you.
If you want to stay with your mess.
Yeah.
You gotta be with somebody who will put up with your mess.
Because they need you. Like really badly. Like a damn, what they call?
Dependent?
They call them hobosexuals.
Oh Lord.
They don't have a home. Like they homeless, so they they latch on to people so that they can have somewhere to stay. A car to drive.
For the bed. They doing that for the night, like for the stay.
They really are. They need somewhere to stay. Mona called them cellar dwellers.
Cellar dwellers. They putting it on you because they like, I need this place.
This bed is nice and the refrigerator is full. Yeah, no. Please don't do that.
Don't do that at all.
Don't do any of the things that we say in the bad advice. This is
no.
more for entertainment,
No.
But if you decide to do any of that, DM me. Let me know. Don't DM Dre. DM me.
I'm not an accomplice in this. This advice is bad.
Really bad.
Would it work?
That last one not gonna work, sweetie. It's not. But listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. No matter how you're joining us today, we appreciate you doing so. Make sure you follow us on social media. I'm at Ronnie Cakes.
At Dre Smith.
And at Relationship Restored. So much good stuff there. Shout out to the other shows, Worth the Wait and For the Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You can always write into us. We love when you do that, like Shy did today.
Yes.
RelationshipRestored.com. Hit the contact button and let us know. We love talking about your scenarios, our scenarios,
for sure,
and giving you good and bad advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes
we do.
Catch you next week.
Peace.